people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It would seem that former two-time WBO super lightweight champion Christina Linardatou is set to return to action after a 2-year hiatus from the sport following her loss to Alicia Baumgartner in what was their second meeting, their rematch. Promoted by the Golden Corner, Christina Linardatou returns dynamically to the Golden Corner boxing show, determined and ready to shine in the ring again in a highly anticipated match that will take place on Sunday, November 16th at the Taekwondo Olympic Stadium in Palaio Falerio. Linardatou, globally known for her passion, strength, and technique, will fight in the 61.5 kilogram category, otherwise known as the lightweight division. 61.5 kilograms is 135 pounds. In a 6-rounder against Jennifer Rodriguez, a highly experienced and tough boxer from Venezuela, with Isaac Saavedra as coach. The preparation of the World Championship has been undertaken by the well-known coaches Nikos Gidakos and Dimitri Zarikos of the Golden Corner Gidakos Gym, who have created a strong and close-knit set ready to take major decisions. The fight is not just a confrontation, but it marks the official return of Christina Linardatou, who sports a professional record of 14 wins with 3 losses and no draws, 6 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 17 professional bouts. To veteran journeywoman Jennifer Rodriguez, who sports a professional record of 14 wins with 13 losses, 2 draws, 8 knockouts, having been knocked out 12 times in 29 professional bouts. Last in action in December of last year opposite the ring, Puerto Rico's own Elise Soto, who stopped Jennifer in the first round. Currently, Jennifer Rodriguez is 2-4 in her last 6 fights. That means that she won 2 and lost 4, coming right off the knockout loss to Elise Soto, where Christina Linardatou is coming off the loss to Alicia Baumgartner 2 years ago in July of 2023. They're both coming off of losses. Christina means to campaign as a lightweight moving forward, which would put her in the same division as Stephanie Han, WBA champion Caroline Dubois, WBC champion Terry Harper, WBO champion, and Beatriz Ferreira, IBF champion. I half expected that Christina, if she is coming back, she'd return to 140 or perhaps at 147. Now, 37 years old, close to 40, I think those weights would have been a lot more accommodating for Christina, but she means to return at 135. So if she were fortunate enough to land a world title opportunity in today's lightweight division beyond this upcoming tune-up fight, the most winnable fights for Christina Linardatou would have to be the Stephanie Han fight and the Terry Harper fight. Both fighters are with MVP. Stephanie Han, the reigning WBA champion, is a lot less experienced as a professional than Christina. Terry Harper. Terry's experienced, but she's already been stopped 2 times. She's been knocked out. And it just so happens that Christina Linardatou is a knockout puncher, best described as a mid-range to inside pressure fighter. Her best bet at becoming a world champion at a second weight would have to be with either Stephanie Han or Terry Harper. Whether or not she'll be able to get those fighters in the ring is another matter. First, she's got to have this tune-up fight, this rebound fight with Jennifer Rodriguez. Then after that, she has to fight in the necessary eliminators to get in position to challenge one of those champions. Force the fight, because I don't think they're going to give it to her willingly.
She has to force them.
She has to, in effect, make it happen, because it's not going to happen on its own. For now, she is set to return to action next month on the 16th against Jennifer Rodriguez. I expect Christina to win. I expect Christina to win that fight, but what happens after that, we'll see. On super lightweight news, Richardson Hitchens is eyeing the winner of Devin Haney versus Brian Gore-Tex. Richardson Hitchens is proud to be a world champion. In the summer, he successfully defended his IBF title in style against former unified champion George Kambosos Jr., but now he's wanting to mix it up with the rest of the 140-pound champions.
About fucking time.
Making a move 7 pounds north to welter, however, is something that is also on his mind. The fight would have to make sense, though. Hitchens wants world title gold in a second division. I'm willing to go up to 147 in my first fight to challenge the winner of Haney versus Norman for the WBO title, Hitchens told Max Kellerman on the latest episode of Inside the Ring, which airs every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT on DAZN. Haney will get his first crack at Norman and his WBO title next month on the 22nd at the A&B Arena in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, live on DAZN. Hitchens isn't sure who'll come out on top. Instead of breaking it down, he wants to be a fan of the fight, but he's targeting the winner. Hitchens' June win over Kambosos was a dominant one. The New Yorker dropped his man before stopping him in the 8th round, but you really have to mitigate how much credit you give Richardson Hitchens for that fight when he literally disparaged George Kambosos himself.
When discussing Devin Haney's undisputed run, Richardson Hitchens chose to disparage it by disparaging George Kambosos. He didn't give Devin credit for beating that guy, so why should he get any credit for beating that guy? After Devin beat him 2 times and Loma stopped him all at 135, why should Richardson Hitchens get any credit for beating him at 140?
Becoming a 2-weight world champion is firmly on his mind, but doing so against Norman is poetic to a certain extent. In the past, Hitchens and Norman have worked together to help one another improve. The 24-year-old manages to get past the former undisputed lightweight champion. Hitchens is down to rekindle their old sparring wars. In a few months, if I'm available and Brian is available, let's make the fight happen. Hitchens continued, "Me and Brian already boxed before in the gym. We're familiar with one another. I think it would be good to do it for a world championship."
Here's what I think. Richardson Hitchens made the decision to not re-up with Matchroom, and as a result, he sat out the second half of this year. Didn't have to be that way.
Time is the one thing you don't get back, and you just pissed away the remaining 6 months of this calendar year to be a free agent. But free to do what?
Hasn't done a goddamn thing since that George Kambosos fight. But he wanted to be free. He can say that he wishes to unify titles with the other champions at the weight, but who's supposed to pay for it? Who's supposed to finance it? You're a free agent. You don't have Matchroom behind you anymore. You know that if he did, he probably would have had one more fight before this year was out, which I think he needs.
So this is yet another guy trying to emulate the career of Floyd Mayweather, the quote-unquote green print. How Floyd Mayweather, in his younger days, broke away from Top Rank and supposedly went into business for himself as a free agent, except that's not what happened. That's not what actually happened. All he did was go from being promoted by Top Rank to being promoted by Golden Boy.
It was Golden Boy cutting the checks.
Floyd Mayweather, for all this talk about breaking away from Top Rank and being a free agent for a period, he was as good as a Golden Boy Promotions fighter, because it was Golden Boy Promotions cutting the checks and making the fights. A younger generation of fighters who weren't there and didn't actually see this for themselves have developed this sort of mythos around the career of Floyd Mayweather, this Cinderella story.
And that's why so many of them are in a hurry now to achieve free agency, not align themselves with a promoter because they think they're emulating Floyd. In a manner of speaking, they think they're doing what he did when he left Top Rank, but all he really did was leave one promoter for another.
Now, you left Matchroom because you didn't want to re-sign with them and re-up with them. What are you doing now?
Not a lot.
Matchroom salvaged
Saved
Richardson Hitchens' fledgling career after Mayweather Promotions left him on the shelf without a fight and without fight dates. Matchroom put him to work, put the money in his pocket, guided him to a title.
And this is how he thanked them, by not re-signing to Matchroom.
Which I view as being more his loss than theirs. The show will go on for Matchroom, but is it going to go on for Richardson Hitchens? He wanted to be a free agent, right? So go be free.
These young fighters don't seem to understand is that free agency is not all it's made out to be. In fact, free agency isn't for the vast majority of fighters. And when I say majority, I mean majority. Anywhere in between 95 to 98% of boxers. Free agency only really benefits the top earners, that top 2-3% that have already established a brand and have an established track record of box office success, gate revenue.
Free agency is for fighters like Canelo Alvarez, and Richardson Hitchens is no Canelo Alvarez. But that's who free agency is for, and that's who most benefits from free agency. But the rest of these guys like Richardson Hitchens, free agency is not for you, and it doesn't help you. It doesn't benefit you. Now, what Richardson Hitchens and his managerial team might have been thinking is that now is a good time to break away from Matchroom so that maybe you can negotiate with Turkey directly, Turkey LL Sheikh.
They must have been thinking to themselves, all the money that Turkey is handing out to these fighters, what do we need with Matchroom?
There has to be a reason that he decided to enter into free agency, and I don't think it was to go to Top Rank. I don't think it was to go to Golden Boy, to go to the PBC, to go to another promotional outfit. They must have did it thinking to themselves, we can work with Turkey directly. So now he's targeting the winner of Haney versus Norman with absolutely no leverage to get the winner of that fight in the ring. And worse, if you move up to the welterweight division and drop your IBF title, you lose all value. The only thing that makes Richardson Hitchens tenuously relevant is that he's a champion at 140 pounds. So that makes him relevant to the unification picture. But at 147, without a belt,
Irrelevant.
I think that the winner of that fight, whether it's Devin or Brian, would look at a lot of other fights with a lot of other fighters before they would even look at Richardson Hitchens. What the fuck do they get out of fighting Richardson Hitchens?
This guy's dreaming.
I think Richardson Hitchens' best bet to maybe get at a big Saudi bag is at his own weight of 140 pounds, unifying titles with one of the other champions that are there. And that's if Turkey is even willing to pay for a unification match at 140. To my knowledge, he's got no plans to, but that's Richardson Hitchens' best bet. Hope that Turkey wants to use you.
Because he hasn't yet.
It's the only way I can see Richardson Hitchens getting at a big Saudi bag without Matchroom's involvement and him being a free agent. If it sounds like I'm chastising Richardson Hitchens for his decision, it's because I am. These guys are always trying to game the system, get one over on everybody. In Richardson Hitchens' case, you're trying to get one over on Matchroom, who basically saved your career.
What fucking career? What career did he have before Matchroom put him to good use?
My opinion, a lot of fighters these days put the cart before the horse. They focus on being a brand instead of being a boxer first.
Being a businessman.
No business acumen instead of being a boxer first. Being the boxer is what segues into everything else, but these guys have a penchant for jumping the gun. And that's how you end up like Richardson Hitchens, with all these hopes and all these aspirations, though no real leverage to make any of it happen.
He wanted to be a free agent, so go be free.
Brian Norman's an interesting one because you just said you think he's the best guy, but I've also seen in a bunch of interviews you say, like, who's he fought? He's fought no one. Top Rank just like set him up. Like, who's the last guy that he knocked out? Jin Sasaki. You're like, well, who's that guy? And compare it to my resume. So do you think he's the best guy just because he has that belt? Or do you actually think he's the best guy?
I think that he's the best guy.
Okay.
I think that he's the best guy at 147. Yeah, I think that he's the best guy from what we've seen. But it's also hard to be able to really give him a good grade because it's against tomato cans.
You think those dudes are tomato cans? I mean, I'm not saying I'm not comparing them to, like.
Let me put it like this.
But there's levels to tomato cans, right? There's like.
All right, well, I can't say if they're tomato cans. All I can say is I don't know them.
Right. You really not know like a Sasaki? You really?
I didn't know Jin Sasaki until now.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know him until he fought him.
Right.
I genuinely did not know him.
And so again,
I knew.
Why do you think he's the best guy if he's not?
Borberchica, I think his name is. I knew him from the amateurs.
But if he's not fighting the top guys, how do you know that he's the best guy, or why do you feel like he's the best guy based on what you're seeing?
We never really know. We never really know until
Are you impressed when you see him fight? Like, are you like, all right, this guy's got skills? Like,
no, yeah, he should. Yeah, he definitely has passed the eye test. But like I said, against guys we never heard of. So
and comparing to
we
your resume.
we know that Top Rank has the best matchmakers in boxing. We know that.
Do you say that? Do you say that as a compliment or as like a shot at them?
Both.
Okay.
No. But we know that though. We know
Meaning
that
they'll matchmake their guys and put them in opportunities to win and look good. Because when I hear of great matchmakers, I think like
they're the best at
50-50
building
fights.
They're the best at building. They're the best at building fighters. I think a guy like Eddie, he's good at building fighters, but he will put his guys in tough and they'll fuck around and lose. We've seen it.
That to me is a better matchmaker. I prefer that matchmaking more because I want to see close fights.
Yeah, well, you're saying as a fan, but I'm talking about the business.
Yeah.
The business of boxing. When
Right.
you want to build, when you're trying to build a star, build
Yeah.
a champion.
How do we reconcile what Devin Haney is saying when it's conflicting? That Brian Norman is the best guy at 147, though simultaneously, we can't grade him. We can't. So then how do we know he's the best?
We don't.
Hypothetically speaking, I would go with Brian Norman to beat anybody and everybody with a belt at 147 right now. And I think that's what Devin Haney means. That if it were Brian Norman versus Mario Barrios, Rolly Romero, or newly crowned IBF champion Louis Crocker, Brian would win, hypothetically speaking. I think that's what Devin means. I mean, that's how I see those fights. That if Brian were to fight those other champions at the weight, he would beat them. So that, in theory, makes him the best.
But because his resume is already so thin, it's hard to grade him compared to Devin.
And that's how I reconcile it. I don't necessarily think it was a backhanded compliment so much as an honest overview of Brian's career so far.
And Top Rank's matchmaking?
Well, to me, Top Rank's matchmakers really are the best in the business. They know how to properly groom a fighter and develop a fighter to where if there's something there, something more, something above average, they will bring it to the light.
Their vetting process.
And if there isn't, then that will also be brought to the light, like it was brought to the light with Edgar Berlanga, who they jettisoned, who they cut loose. They saw this guy wasn't no good, but he wants a lot of money.
Go be somebody else's problem.
Devin highlighted how Eddie Hearn and Matchroom like to put their boys and girls in sink or swim fights, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes they lose. But the same applies to Top Rank. They don't just spoon feed you, no hopers to pad your record. The matchmaking is very much intentional, with the intention of bringing out what you're good at and what you're not, what styles you struggle with, and what styles make you look good. Because remember, it's all happening on their dime, and they're not trying to fuck off money, fritter away millions and millions of dollars on a fighter that ain't no good. That's why they cut Edgar Berlanga loose.
Brian is the best at 147, in my opinion, even though he hasn't had the chance to prove that. If you matched him against any of the other belt holders that are there, I think Brian would come out on top. Every single time. I think he would beat them. So in that way, he's the best at 147.
There's an argument there, though simultaneously, his quality of competition is not on par with Devin. Devin has fought the more familiar fighters, the more familiar faces, the decorated fighters, more so than Brian. So those two things can be true at the same time.